Hi everybody, I hope you are doing as well as you can right now in the midst of all this insanity. I'm here setting up in studio, going live. Lots of breaking news. I don't even know where to begin. I was on the Majority Report this morning and tons of breaking news coming in as we were on. There was more footage than we could even cover of police brutality against protesters. There wasn't enough time to cover the amount of footage that was being sent in and posted on the internet of police cracking down on peaceful protesters, on police tear gassing, arresting, beating protesters, and of course the media as well. Things are moving so rapidly. There's so many injustices that even the most egregious ones aren't being covered with the right amount of news coverage or attention. And I think you guys are probably aware of this like blackout thing that's posting online right now. And I've reached out to people that I believe are very conscious of the best tools and ways to affect change and to let people know about what's happening, as well as being really aware of how this technology works, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. And I have decided not to post the blackout box, not because I don't stand in solidarity, clearly I do, but because the algorithms are shifted in a way that what happens is you go onto Instagram and then you see all black boxes rather than seeing the photographs and the stories of the injustice that's happening right now, rather than seeing the egregiousness and the news. And I think in the beginning it was really targeted at hashtags and not seeing the wrong hashtags go out there, but we have to be really aware that the algorithms don't necessarily suit the hashtags. So suddenly your feed's just all black boxes rather than seeing stories from the ground that people are sharing. So with that being said, that's not why we're talking today. I'm talking because there's some breaking news right now. There's quite a bit of breaking news. I have two pieces I want to share with you. The first is that the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency, right, has been given permission to investigate people protesting George Floyd's death. That's a vague, there are millions of people on the streets of America right now that are protesting in the name of George Floyd and Black Lives Matter. And every single person who's been wronged, every single person of color, black person who's been wronged by the hands of our police force. So this is a pretty vague area for them to investigate, and it has been given, the authority has been given to the DEA, which means they're looking for some sort of legal loophole, by the Justice Department. Oh, what a shocker! The Justice Department, Trump's tool. Okay, so the Justice Department, this is reported maybe not even 2 hours ago by BuzzFeed, Jason Leopold and Anthony Cormier. They said that the Justice Department gave the DEA the temporary partner to, quote, enforce any federal crime committed as a result of protests over the death of George Floyd. So, quote, the Drug Enforcement Administration has been granted sweeping new authority to conduct covert surveillance, and collect intelligence on people participating in protests over the murder of George Floyd. Is a 2-page memorandum. I'm looking at it right now from Timothy Shea, acting administrator, sent to the deputy attorney general. Immediate. So, hang on a second. The Drug Enforcement Administration is using it to their discretion to survey people. It's bad enough we have the Patriot Act. This is full-blown fascism. So I'm going to read through this. If this request is granted, which it was, the DEA special agents and task force officers will, as necessary, number one, conduct covert surveillance and protect against threats to public safety. Number 2, share intelligence, this is key, with federal, state, local, and tribal counterparts. Number 3, if necessary, intervene as federal law enforcement officers intervene as federal law enforcement officers to protect both participants and spectators in the protests. And number 4, if necessary, engage in investigative and enforcement activity, including, but not limited to, conducting interviews, conducting searches, and making arrests for violations of federal law. This was approved by Gerard Weinsheimer in the Justice Department. Okay? So suddenly, you have what is very likely, and this is my next statement to make, instigators out there conducting separate protests. There are organized movement protests with movement leaders who've been on the front lines fighting for decades in some cases. I live in New York. I have been involved in dozens and dozens of protests throughout New York. And there are folks who know how to do it, who know what to show up, how to show up, what to say, to call for permits in some situations, to have legal aid there. As a reporter who's been on the front lines, you know exactly how, where, and when to push up against the police if they go too far, because they do oftentimes. And there's a protest unit in the NYPD, which I don't believe I think it's much more than a protest unit at this point, because the streets are flooded. But separately from the organized, well thought out, peaceful protest, there is this looting that is taking place in different parts of, I'm using New York as an example, different parts of New York. Protests are happening downtown, they're happening in Brooklyn, and then suddenly on Fifth Avenue, they're looting. And the police are at the protests, but somehow don't seem to be there to stop the looting that's happening by who knows who. Well, turns out, you ready for this? I will link the document up after this. I'll tweet it out, but it's on BuzzFeed. It went up a couple of hours ago. So the FBI has found, quote, this is another statement, another document. This is in The Nation, okay? They have found no intel indicating Antifa involvement in Sunday's violence. That's the FBI. Don't forget, the FBI has been investigating police forces around the country for organized white supremacy infiltration for the last several years, since Donald Trump at least. I mean, I'm sure it goes back way further than that, but they've at least seen a spike in organized white supremacy in police forces around the country. So I'm going to read to you what The Nation has put out. I got a press release from The Nation about this. So the FBI's Washington field office has, quote, no intelligence indicating Antifa involvement or presence in the violence that occurred specifically on May 31st, according to an internal FBI situation report obtained exclusively by The Nation. The same day, I'm reading this from the statement from The Nation, the same day President Donald Trump announced on Twitter that he would designate Antifa a terrorist organization, even though the government has no existing authority to declare a domestic group as a terrorist organization. Side note, my editorialization, this is the excuse that they use in not being able, and not declaring the KKK, an actual organized entity, as a terrorist organization. This is the excuse that they use, right? Back to The Nation. Following the president's tweet, Attorney General William Barr said in a statement, quote, the violence instigated and carried out by Antifa and other similar groups, vague, in connection with the rioting is domestic terrorism and will be treated accordingly. You don't have the power to do so. We know that. Antifa, of course, is not an organization. It's an ideology. It's being anti-fascist. And I don't know how you can be a terrorist group if you're anti-fascist. I've tweeted out the definition of fascism, very basic. I didn't search for it. It was literally the first thing that came up. It's Google's definition. and somehow that's become controversial. You can go to my Twitter, Instagram, or wherever to see that tweet, because personally, I woke up yesterday to a lot of right-wing hate from extremist right-wing commentators and journalists who were clearly, they were given a memo to go after folks who are trying to clarify what Antifa is for those who may not be aware. Stacey Peterson, thank you so much. Thank you for your love and for supporting our show. If you guys aren't supporting the show, please click subscribe, like, share, however you can, and join us on patreon.com/The Nomiki Show. We're going to start to put out some more content on the show. You're going to get your money's worth on Patreon, because there's just so much news happening and it's breaking so fast, and we want to make sure that you guys get updated information on how to fight back, what's happening. This week, we're going to be talking about defunding the police and the efforts in organizing to defund the police. I think that's extremely important for us to deeply understand the business model of the police departments around the country and the unions, and how they ask for all this money from their mayors and their city councils to approve the budgets that are overwhelmingly weighted towards police unions, right? So, turns out a lot of this money is used, I think many of you knew, but we want to reiterate this and delve in deeper. Much of this money is used in settlements for police brutality. Our taxpayer money is being cycled through to protect police officers who are violent and being called out and caught and sued. The police forces are being sued, and the union is taking this money that mayors are giving them in their budget to protect violent police officers. All right, back to this Nation document. The FBI report, however, states that, quote, based on CHS, which is confidential human source, canvassing open source social media partner engagement and liaison, FBI WFO has no intelligence indicating, no, not some, not a little bit, no assumption, no intelligence indicating Antifa involvement, presence. The statement followed a list of violent acts like bricks being thrown at police and backpacks containing explosive materials, which were flagged by the FBI under, quote, key update sections of the report. Again, none of these documents contain any evidence of Antifa violence. Now, that comes from Ken Klippenstein, excuse me. Ken is a dear friend. Ken is a reporter, investigative reporter at The Nation. We used to be colleagues at TYT, of course. So this is huge news, in that they have not found anything. But of course, and none of this has been proved yet, but when I was on Majority Report today, we shared footage of bricks that were being, somebody on social media had gotten footage. They were in an apartment building and they were looking outside the window, and they saw in an alley two what appeared to be police officers putting bricks in a very orderly way in the back of a vehicle. And that's one of the things that I think all of us have said, like, where are these bricks coming from? It's not something, I've been, as I said, covered countless protests throughout New York, LA, Chicago. I'm trying to think of all the cities, Phoenix, that I've been in. And I've never seen anything like that. I've never seen anybody who comes from the movement bring bricks, throw bricks at the police. And I think what's really fascinating about this is, all right, so if they've investigated this, because don't forget, they have the ability to monitor social media, I question where it's coming from, and if there are folks, as the FBI has been investigating white supremacy in the police force, if there are some folks who might be instigating the violence from the police force. And it's just, I find it very odd, and I really question some of the police leadership's decision in not spending, if they're so concerned with looting, why are they not spending more time protecting businesses, forming front lines to prevent the looting. Instead, they're pepper spraying journalists, they're pepper spraying nonviolent protest. I mean, no one's violent. The protesters, I mean, we know this is a peaceful protest. When CNN now is on the side of peaceful protesters, you know something fishy is going on. So these two pieces of news that have broken in the last, hour and a half about the DEA authorized to conduct covert surveillance of protesters. Let me just remind you, they are now able to conduct, it was approved by the Justice Department, to conduct covert surveillance based on what? A hunch? So the DEA is going to be surveying protesters that they have a hunch. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. If Democratic leaders are still silent right now, I don't want to hear Joe Biden get up and say he stands with the protesters. I want to hear demands for accountability. I don't want to hear just criticizing Donald Trump. I want to hear demands for accountability when it comes to this fishiness, calling out the fact that the DEA is suddenly the authority that is gathering information to fish over to other federal government administrations, as it said in this document, as I said earlier. So meanwhile, you have the FBI pushing back. I want to give a shout out. Thank you guys. Thank you, Yoda, for the love. Much appreciated. For those of you on the ground, please chime in. Tell me what you're seeing, what you're hearing. Like I said, on the majority reports today, we were going through footage, and it was endless, non-stop. So the news is this is happening too quickly. One more piece of information, because we don't want this stuff to get lost, right? Today, I don't know if this happened today or I was sent this today because I get press releases from folks. The FCC approves 100% foreign ownership of domestic media organizations. So if, say, like CNN or Vice or Fox News or, you name it, multinational, don't forget, many of these are attached to multinational corporations. There is the ability for them to have 100% foreign ownership. I'm going to read you a quote from this. In this declaratory ruling, the Media Bureau addresses a petition for declaring ruling, petition filed by Cumulus Media Incorporated. Cumulus is the petitioner, on July 19th, 2018. That was when the petition was made. It asked the Commission to exercise its discretion to permit Cumulus to exceed the 25% foreign ownership benchmark set out in Section 310B4 of the Communications Act of 1934. Specifically, I'm moving on. Specifically, a petition requests approval to permit up to and including an aggregate of 100% direct and or indirect foreign investment, voting and equity in Cumulus. Cumulus filed the petition, which is unopposed, on behalf of itself and each of its direct and indirect subsidiaries which hold the Commission broadcast licenses. As discussed below, we find that will be served the public, and it was granted, more or less. Including the radio market. I'm just skipping ahead because some of this is very legally. Cumulus is the owner of nearly 450 radio broadcast licensees. So, this is America under fascism. Thank you so much, Jay, for the love. We really appreciate it. Just as a reminder for those of you tuning in, Antifa at the FBI has found that they have no evidence, absolutely no evidence of any involvement with Antifa in response to Donald Trump saying that he's going to investigate them for domestic terrorism, even though he has no legal authority to do so, and Antifa is not an organization. That's number one. Number two, we learned that the FCC has approved of foreign governments or entities, I should say, being able to purchase or to own 100% of media in America. And number three, the breaking news: the DEA was authorized by the Justice Department to conduct covert surveillance of protesters. We'll see what happens tomorrow. Good luck, everybody. If you're out there on the streets, stay safe. Especially stay safe. Cover your faces. Don't give people your names. If you're live streaming from the ground. Be careful. You can also tape, meaning tape. You can also film from your phones and save it. Keep your phones off and save it and publish it later when you're back in a safe place. If you if you're pepper sprayed, milk, Maalox, I'm sure you guys are aware of this at this point. But definitely don't share your personal information. I would even say don't even live stream, but that's, exercise caution, do what you need to do, what you choose to do. Don't share other people's names, and if you can't share their faces, that would be great. You always want to be able to talk to the person before you film them. These are dangerous times, and they're definitely, the FBI has just said they were monitoring social media, and that's the FBI. So who knows what the DEA is going to be doing now. All right, thanks, Hyde. Thank you for the love. We will be back on Thursday, same time, 8 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. Who knows what'll happen then? If you're not subscribed, click subscribe, click like, and would be very grateful if you guys could join us on Patreon at patreon.com/The Nomiki Show. We have a show up right now that's pretty powerful, and this week we've got some great guests where we're talking about the defund police movement, and I think we'll have a couple of, they're not confirmed yet, but we'll have a couple more guests that I think are going to blow your mind. So send us ideas for guests right now. I want to hear what you want put out there. This is your platform. I want to put it out there. I am a vehicle for you. It is, I think, the best way we can do this right now. So stay safe, stay healthy. If you are home, be well. Take care.